Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya We're on Canto 2, Chapter 1, Text 14. Tavapi etarhi Kauravya Saptaham Jivitavadihi Upakalpaya Tat Sarvam Tavad Yat Samparayikam Tavapyetarhi Kauravya Saptaham Jivitavadihi Upakalpaya Tatsarvam Tavad Yat Samparayikam Tavapyetarhi Kauravya Saptaham Jivitavadihi Upakalpaya Tatsarvam Tavad Yat Samparayikam Tavapyetarhi Kauravya Saptaham Jivitavadihi Upakalpaya Tatsarvam Tavad Yat Samparayikam
Vapyata hi Kauravya
Devapyatarhi Kauravya
Saptaham Jivitavadihi
Sabdaham Jivitavadihi
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Tavad Yat Samparayikam
Tavadyat Samparayikam
Tavapyetarhi Kauravya
Avapyatarhi Kauravya
Saptahang Jivitavadihi
Sabdaham Jivitavadihi
Upakalpaya Tatsarvang
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Tavatyat Samparayikam
Parayikam
Devapye tari Kauravya
Devapyatarhi Kauravya
Saptahang Jivatavadihi
Saptaham Jivitavadihi
Upakalpaya Tatsarvang
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Tavad Yat Samparayikam
Tavadyat Samparayikam
Devapye tari Kauravya
Kauravya
Saptaham Jivatavadihi
Jivitavadihi
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Tavad Yat Samparayikam
Avadyat Samparayikam
Devapye tari Kauravya
Kauravya
Saptaham Jivitavadihi
Jivitavadihi
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Tavadyat Samparayikam
Avadyat Samparayikam
Vapyatahi Kauravya
Avadyat Samparayikam
Saptaham Jivita Vadihi
Saptaham Jivitavadihi
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Tavadyat Samparayikam
Tavadyat Samparayikam
Tavapyatarhi Kauravya
Devapyatarhi Kauravya
Saptaham Jivitavadihi
Saptaham Jivitavadihi
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Tavadyat Samparayikam
Avadyat Samparayikam
Tavapyetari Kauravya
Devapyatarhi Kauravya
Saptaham Jivita Varihi
Saptaham Jivitavadihi
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Avaryat Samparayikam
Tavadyat. Are there any chanters online?
Tavapyatari Kur Abhaya
Kauravya
Saptaham Jivitavadihi
Saptaham Jiva
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Upakalpaya Tatsarvam
Tavadyat Samparayikam
Avadyat Samparayikam. Tava, your, api, also, itarhi, therefore, Kaurava or Kauravya, O one born in the family of Kuru. Saptaham, 7 days. Jivita, duration of life. Avadihi, up to the limit of. Upakalpaya, get them performed. Tat, those. Sarvam, all, tavat, so long, yat, which are, samparayikam, rituals for the next life. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Maharaj Parikshit, now your duration of life is limited to 7 more days. So during this time you can perform all those rituals which are needed for the best purpose of your life. Purport. Shukadev Goswami, after citing the example of Maharaj Kadvanga, who prepared himself for the next life within a very short time, encouraged Maharaj Parikshit by saying that since he still had 7 days at his disposal, he could easily take advantage of the time and prepare himself for the next life. Indirectly, the Goswami told Maharaj Parikshit that he should take shelter of the sound representation of the Lord for the 7 days still remaining in the duration of his life, and thus get himself liberated. In other words, everyone can best prepare himself for the next life simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, as it was recited by Shukadev Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. The rituals are not formal, but there are also some favorable conditions, which are required to be carried out, as instructed hereafter. Om Agyana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sahagana Raganathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to do this service and for always enthusiastically engaging in devotional service and the Bhagavatam class and the Bhagavad Gita class and the Kirtans. So we'll go ahead with this verse and purport. So previously, Shukadev Goswami was giving the example of Maharaj Kadvanga, who perfected his life in a very short time. He heard he had a moment to live, so he left the heavenly planets of this universe, which are full of material enjoyments and opulences, and just went to the earth to quickly in that moment sit down and fully concentrate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And in this way, he perfected his life in that one moment. So Shukadev Goswami tells this to Maharaj Parikshit to reassure him that he can do it. He only has 7 days to live, but in this very short time, if he makes the choice to take up the process properly, then he can be successful in his life by attaining the topmost goal, Krishna Prema, love of Godhead, and going back to the spiritual world to engage in his original eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and all his associates and varieties of life there. So Maharaj Kadvanga could do it in a very short time. So Shukadev Goswami is telling Maharaj Parikshit that he can do it in these 7 days if he properly takes advantage of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the sages who are asking these questions and hearing these answers that we are hearing right now, it's a story inside of a story right now. So Sutta Goswami and Shonika Rishi are gathered at Naimisharanya. There are many sages headed by Shonika Rishi, and let's see. And the speaker is Sutta Goswami. So Shonika Rishi is heading all of these great sages from all around the universe. And then seated on the Vyasasan is Sutta Goswami, who is speaking to them on many topics. And so that conversation is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So right now we're hearing Sutta Goswami speak about Shukadev Goswami speaking to Maharaj Parikshit, which had happened previously. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there were 6 questions that were asked by these sages to Sutta Goswami. And those questions are, Tatra tatragyasa yushman bhagavata yad vinishchitam humsam ekantata shreyas tanna shamsitum arhasi. Please, therefore, being blessed with many years, explain to us in an easily understandable way what you have ascertained to be the absolute good for the people in general. And then question number 2 by the sages. Burini buri karmani shrotavyani vibhagashaha atasado trayatsaram samudritya manishaya bruhi badraya bhutanam yenatma suprasidati. There are many varieties of scriptures, and in all of them there are many prescribed duties, which can be learned only after many years of study in their various divisions. Therefore, O sage, please select the essence of all these scriptures and explain it for the good of all living beings, that by such instruction their hearts may be fully satisfied. And their third question, Tanna shushu shamanana nam arhasyanganuvarnitum yasyavataro bhutanam shemaya cha bhavaya cha. O Sutta Goswami, we are eager to learn about the personality of Godhead and his incarnations. Please explain to us those teachings imparted by previous masters, acharyas, for one is uplifted both by speaking them and by hearing them. In question 4, Kova bhagavatas tasya punya shlokedya karmanaha shuddhi kamo na shrinuyad yasha kali malapaham. Who is there desiring deliverance from the vices of the age of quarrel, who is not willing to hear the virtuous glories of the Lord? In question 5, Atakyahi harer diman avatara kata shubhaha lila vidita sviram ishvarasyatma mayaya. O wise Sutta, please narrate to us the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Godhead's multi-incarnations. Such auspicious adventures and pastimes of the Lord, the Supreme Controller, are performed by his internal powers. And lastly, question 6. Bruhi Yogeshvare Krishne Brahmanye Dharmavarman Svam Kastam Adunopete Dharmakam Sharanam Gataha. Since Sri Krishna, the absolute truth, the master of all mystic powers, has departed for his own abode, please tell us to whom the religious principles have now gone for shelter. So, in the Srimad Garga Samhita, from His Holiness Dhanavir Goswami, who is very kindly translating it and writing elaborate purports to it, in presenting this, he summarized the 6 questions in there within some of the first few texts of the first book. And so to give a short summary of those questions, he explained that number 1 is, what is the absolute and ultimate good for the people in general? That was their first question. 2, what is the essence of all scriptures that will make all beings satisfied? 3, what are the teachings imparted by previous masters, acharyas? 4, who is that person not willing to hear the virtuous glories of the Lord? And 5, what are the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Godhead's multi-incarnations? And where did religious principles go for shelter after the departure of Lord Krishna? So this is the Srimad Bhagavatam, is Sutta Goswami's answers to these 6 questions. And so with the human form of life, we should inquire into the absolute truth by asking such questions. And in this way, we perfect our life, but also everyone involved does. The person speaking and answering, the person's hearing, the bugs that are walking by, everyone gets purified because their spiritual subject matter is related to Krishna. And he's the source of all incarnations and all there is. So by reviving our eternal relationship with Krishna, we are making the utmost progress in going back to Godhead, back to the spiritual world. It's stated in the Bhagavatam that with the passing of days, as the sun rises and sets, it's taking away the life of all living entities, except for one who's hearing the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam and engaging in the Lord's service, because that person is actually going back to the spiritual world. They're regaining their eternal youthful form. So it doesn't matter how much time is actually passing. By them engaging in that process, even though the external body might be becoming old, the actual spiritual being inhabiting the body, the driver of the body, is becoming eternally youthful. They're always eternally youthful, but by reawakening that nature and coming back into that Krishna consciousness, knowing who they are in relation to the Supreme Person, then it's like they're not getting old at all, they're getting younger. So some answers to the questions that they asked, such as, what is the essence of all scriptures that will make all beings satisfied? Sutta Goswami replied, this is a famous verse, if people know it, they can chant along. Savai pum tam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhoksaje ahaitukya pratiyata yayatma suprasidati. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So Valmiki Prabhu has mentioned a lot on this, the points about unmotivated and uninterrupted, specifically the uninterrupted point. So this is the supreme activity. What's the best way we can spend our time? What's the best thing to do? It's engage in the Lord's service. And how much do I do it? All the time, nonstop. And how do I do it? Without any other motivation. So it's not I engage in the Lord's service for this or that result, but just for the pleasure of the Lord. Like Dhruva Maharaj, when he went to the forest to engage in austerities, he wanted some result. He wanted to get a kingdom greater than his father's kingdom. And his father was very great. So to get a kingdom greater than his father's would be quite a big deal. But he went to the forest and he engaged in austerities to seek the benediction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when he finally got the meeting with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and was asked, what can I do for you by Vishnu? Like what benediction can I give you? From Vishnu and Krishna, they're the same person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this Supreme Person appears, the Supreme Spiritual Transcendental Person who has an eternal blissful form, which is full of all 6 opulences, everything in full, appears to Dhruva Maharaj and asks him, ask anything and I'll give it to you. But Dhruva Maharaj, he explains that when I came to this forest and then started engaging in these austerities, I was simply looking for broken pieces of glass. But now that I have found you, I've found the most valuable diamond, jewel. So he doesn't want anything for himself anymore. He realizes any of these things that we can try to get so-called for ourselves in the material world is simply a waste of time. It's like broken pieces of glass compared to the valuable jewel of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that valuable jewel is so valuable that the Supreme Lord himself wants to come and experience it. He incarnates as Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just to experience what it's like to serve himself, because it's that great. So even the Supreme Person, the best person, he wants to experience what this devotional service is like. So when Krishna appeared as Lord Chaitanya, one of the activities that is described that he was doing in the Chaitanya Charitamrita is that he was hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and he would listen to it and recite it with Gadadhar Pandit, and they'd read the pastimes of Dhruva Maharaj, and they'd read it once, and then they'd read it again, and then they'd finish that time and say, let's read it again, and they'd go back and read it again. So even though there's so much given in the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, all the Vedas, all of Srila Prabhupada's books, Lord Chaitanya, who is Krishna himself coming to experience the nectar of devotional service, he's not just thinking, okay, I'll do the task and then it's done. I'll hear the book one time and then it's over, and then I check it off the list, but he's relishing devotional service because it's the best thing. So they're wanting to engage in these activities over and over again without any stop and without any motivation, not just, I'll do the ones I like and then we won't clean the Gundicha temple, or I'll do this one and not that one. But they're engaging in devotional service. Lord Chaitanya and his associates in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, they're engaging in devotional service simply for the pleasure of Krishna, because they just care about what Krishna thinks and how Krishna feels and what Krishna wants. So they're engaging in devotional service for his satisfaction, for his enjoyment. Are there any comments or questions? Yes, Bhakta Fred Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thanks for the nectar class, and please accept my humble obeisances.
Please accept my humble obeisances.
So, the story with Dhruva Maharaj, I'm wondering if part of the point of that is that we might come to devotional service with some sort of motive, but once we realize, or once we're situated in Krishna consciousness, that motive falls away, because...
Yeah, when we first engage in devotional service, it is very, very likely we're going to have it will be mixed in the beginning, because we've been in the material world for so long with so many different material motives. So when we come to devotional service, we'll bring some of those with us. Like Valmiki had mentioned the other day, it's not we just walk in the door and then I'm pure. So we come in and then there's things to do. So that mixture of ambitions and motives and things will be there in the beginning, but the process of devotional service is so purifying, so prophylactic in itself, that just by engaging in it, we become more purified. Yeah. I could think of one example. Sorry if it's not the best example, but like when I first came here, Magadari and I got to go to Bonnaroo with Maharaj and Krishna Bhagavan and the devotees, and we set up a big tent, and it was like our first preaching engagement. And so I had just graduated college, so still my ambitions were the same as college. I was just thinking, if I can get a good girlfriend, then my life is complete. So we went to Bonnaroo, and so this ambition is still there. and we had an opportunity to preach, but pretty much all the people who came in the tent at first were young women in all sorts of costumes for the music festival. So at first that ambition is there, but then just like in that weekend as we're preaching, then we're realizing, wait a second, this actually, it's a lot easier for me to preach to the young men who are coming to the tent. So at first that ambition is there, some material motive, but then we're engaging in the devotional service, and such contaminated motives get purified, and then we just want to do the service. Sorry for that example. Buck, did you?
Yes, I was wondering if you could explain the difference between Vishnu and Krishna, because if Vishnu is non-different from Krishna, then why is Vishnu also an incarnation of Krishna?
The difference between, they're the same supreme personality of Godhead, but it's just like a man working at home, he may have different things that he wears and different ways that he acts. So with his family, he's wearing his casual, he's got the shorts on, and he's ready to go out to the beach or on the boat and have a good time. But then when he's working, he puts on the big suit and he goes to the office and he's referred to as like Mr. So-and-so. So it's the same person, but Krishna's unlimited. So when, we also have desires to do different things and have different relationships, different personalities, different different rasa, a different mood. But when we do it, we still have the same body, same clothes, and all that stuff. It's not a complete difference. But Krishna is fully spiritual. He's transcendental. He can do anything that he wants. So when he wants to have a different mood or perform some different function, he can just expand himself into a whole nother form, a whole nother person, but they're still the same person. It's inconceivable. Yes, Magadari Prabhu?
Mother Mercedes has a question. What's the next step for shelter after reading, hearing, chanting, sharing, etc.? For reference, I keep having these dreams telling me to take shelter, that Maya is out there, and I don't know what else I can do to take shelter in my current position.
Yes. Maya is diligently doing her duty. So to take shelter, we read, hear, chant, associate with devotees, take prasadam, serve our spiritual master, and then we do all those things again. We continually, like that verse, ahaytukiya pratiyata, devotional service that's uninterrupted. So we do these activities and then we keep going. Like Lord Chaitanya, they heard the pastimes of Dhruva Maharaj and they're in ecstasy, and then they said, let's hear it again. So we keep doing these services. We keep engaging in devotional service, specifically in the association of devotees, because devotees are keeping us accountable and keeping us inspired and enlivened. So somehow or other, in the association of devotees, we're hearing and chanting and engaging in different services. And those never end. We keep doing them here until eventually we go back to the spiritual world, ideally in this lifetime, and engage in more of these activities there, glorifying the Lord in different ways. Yes.
Hare Krishna. So you shared some of the questions that the sages asked Sukta Goswami, and one of them was, who is not willing to hear? I was just wondering why they're asking that, because usually we would ask, like, who is willing to hear? What kind of person is wanting to know these things? So can you talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, that is a really interesting question. Well, first we could look at the answer that they gave. That might help or the answer that Sutta Goswami gave. So, for who is not willing to hear the virtuous glories of the Lord? And here's the answer in brief. Nivita Tarshir, or I'll just read the English. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the Parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Those who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord, except a butcher. Oh, therefore, who will cease? This is the answer. It's stated in a question form. Therefore, who will cease hearing the glorification of the Lord, except a butcher, or one who is killing his own self? So, Valmiki had also mentioned that word in a class recently, Atmaha, the killer of the soul. That's who will not engage in this process. So, I'm sure in the purports to Srimad Bhagavatam 10.1.4, that's where that answer is. There's probably some nice points on this, the reason that they're asking it. And in the purport to that particular question, so the answer is 10.1.4, and the question was in the question is in 1.1.16. So I'm sure Prabhupada has nice points about the specific reasons for the question there, but one that we can understand right off the bat is that they're doing it for the benefit of everyone, so that we can hear that and be benefited by it and have the proper understanding of this process of devotional service, and for everyone there also. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.